Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, and on Wednesdays we talk about emotional well-being and relationships. You've probably heard the old adage about the difference between being an optimist and a pessimist as being the difference between seeing the glass half full versus half empty. My problem has always been that I always tend to ask, well, what's in the glass? That might make a difference. But seriously, we all know people who tend to see the world in a more negative light, or what I call the Eeyores of the world, right? From Winnie the Pooh. It'll never work. We'll never make it. And then at the other end, you've got the Pollyannas, who seem to be overly cheerful, almost naively optimistic, no matter what the circumstances. By the way, the name derives from Emily Porter's novel, children's novel from 1913, Pollyanna. So that's where that comes from. But if we could actually choose one or the other, I'd be inclined to choose the latter. Perhaps like myself, though, in real life, I found myself at times I've been an Eeyore, at times I've been a Pollyanna. Most of the time, though, I've often lived my life with a disposition that falls somewhere in between the two extremes. So I like to dream of the impossible, but I'll often temper my views with a hefty dose of realism. And realism, in either case, it's not good or bad one way or the other per se. I think that too much realism or practicality at times can sort of dampen our enthusiasm. And so, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But as I've gotten older, I think I've started to really shift my worldview more and more in the direction of optimism, despite all evidence to the contrary, perhaps. And I think I've figured out in that sense what optimism really means and how that can be a truly healthier worldview. And without sort of lapsing into this fantasy world, right, of impossible idealism. And I call it actually reachable idealism, a belief in our ability to strive and often reach our ideals. And this is essentially what I mean by optimism. Even though formally, when we tend to think about, or if you were to define optimism, we typically define it as a mental attitude characterized by hope and confidence in success and a positive future. I just don't particularly like the term hope there. So I tend to replace hope with something like persistent belief. So it's an attitude characterized by a persistent belief and confidence in success and a positive future. And then that allows me to follow through with the 10 commandments or principles associated with optimism. So that's what I'd like to share today. First, you start with the idea of believing in what's possible. I think that's a core foundational principle of anybody who's aspiring to be an optimist. So then you have to approach the world with the idea that your beliefs have the power to change the world. Yes, from the smallest of personal successes to the toppling of the Berlin Wall or whatever great historical outcome you might like to see happen. But you have to believe that your beliefs can change how you perceive the world and what might be possible, and therefore, too, how you end up engaging the world. So I'll give you a very simple example. So, you think of it as the power of positive thinking too. But when I was 15, I had a swimming coach, Coach Chip, I remember this so well, who kind of fundamentally changed my mindset about competing. I was, as they say, at the bottom of the 15 to 18-year-old swimming group, right? You swam with the different age groups. And so as a 15-year-old, I was always competing against everybody who was 16, 17, and 18 as well, right? So one week, he decided to stick me in the 50-meter backstroke, my third best stroke, because he was sort of trying to be strategic about who he would swim in different events and so on. And so I looked at the guy's time from the preceding week, right? And I said, Coach, that guy's best time is like over a second better than me. Why are you putting me in backstroke against this guy? And without hesitating, Coach Chip said, sure, he's got a better time, but that's only on paper. He's never had to actually swim against you. I thought, oh, yeah, that's right. And so anyway, that Saturday, I did have to swim against him. And guess what? I dropped my full time by over a full second. And guess what else happened? No, I didn't beat him, but I did actually tie him. I remember this so vividly. So yeah, I tied this guy. I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe it. This guy's way better than I am. But Chip led me to believe otherwise. So, in short, if you cultivate kind of a growth mindset, then you can engage the world from more of that anything is possible approach. I call it the Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. So be open to learning and new possibilities, and develop an uncanny ability then to confront and overcome obstacles. Your view of the world then can profoundly influence how you lead your life and what you ultimately believe and then do accomplish. And so if you believe that a solution exists to the problem, then you'll start seeing possibilities and then have much greater motivation to act accordingly. And that leads to the second commandment. You have to get busy and do the work. Okay? You don't merely engage in wishful thinking. That only takes you so far, in your imagination. But you have to actually then take the steps, take the actions to move yourself in a particular direction. You have to develop your capacity then for self-directed efforts that you can then sustain over time. And the real challenge I've always found is, how do you develop that motivation that allows you to engage in sustained efforts? It's much easier to do, I think, if you believe you've found your purpose, or you have a sincere purpose, or you're in terms of what you're aspiring to do. And it's certainly easier if you love what you do. And so that brings us to principle number 3. An optimist lives and works from a place of love and not fear. So believe it or not, that's a choice you can make. If you operate from a place of fear, for example, you'll experience limitations and resentment, arrogance, insecurity, perhaps greed. The more we linger in a state of fear, we experience more self-doubt and we tend to procrastinate. So fear is really a paralyzing condition. If you live from a place of love and kindness and compassion, however, you'll soon discover an abundance of courage and confidence and fortitude and generosity. As Nelson Mandela once said, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we've made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead. And then that leads me to commandment number 4. Focus on yourself in the sense of identifying then what you can control. If you're truly an optimist, then you'll understand deeply that much of what happens in this world, in this life, is beyond our control. Now, you know that intuitively. You know that in your gut. You know that intellectually as well. You cannot control, people's opinions of you or their actions in most instances. You can't control how natural events unfold or natural disasters and much more. But instead, what you can control then is how you respond to events and to people and to situations, and how you think about them. So you can control your opinions, your aspirations. You can control your habits. You can control the specific actions that you might be inclined to take. You can control your mind and how you think about things. Beyond these basic parameters, if you worry about what else you think you can control, you're basically only going to end up generating more anxiety and torment and frustration. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals, not under my control, and which have to do with the choices that I actually do control. So master yourself, and in effect, you'll master your life. And then this gets to commandment number 5. Give it a try. The optimist doesn't fear trying, doesn't fear the failure, but rather focuses on the effort and the joy of the journey. If you're an optimist, you can choose what's important, and then you can commit to following through with whatever that might be. It's not so much that failure is not an option, but rather that failing to even try is not an option. And then when you do try, bear in mind commandment number 6. Embrace the habit of being solution-focused. An optimist is one who's solution-focused, who believes there's always a solution. You may not know it offhand or readily, but you know that one exists. It has to. And therefore, you focus your energies on finding the solutions to the problems that you encounter. So focus then again on what you're trying to accomplish rather than what's preventing you from getting what you want. Every worthy endeavor has challenges and obstacles. And an optimist understands this and doesn't panic or complain, and instead figures out how to take effective action. So make a habit then of finding solutions. Train your mind to think in terms of what you hope to accomplish, and then always ask yourself, what can I do now that might help, or that might help solve the problem that I've encountered? Okay? And then principle 7 might strike you as a bit odd. Engineer your own serendipity. It's always nice to get lucky, of course, but you can actually create your own luck. More specifically, by allowing yourself to open yourself up to new possibilities and to be receptive of what comes your way. So convert challenges then into opportunities. And then accept and indeed embrace whatever life throws at you. Who knows? Think in engineering terms, if you will. When the winds of change blow, some people will build walls, others will build windmills. And I think that this sums up very nicely the creative adaptability of the optimist mindset as compared with how others might think about these issues. And then here's principle number 8. Be grateful and accepting, even if that involves enduring pain and suffering along the way. As best I can determine, there's always some pain and suffering in this lifetime. But of course, that's not the end of the story. Optimism isn't just about trying to be positive, because clearly there are things that are going to happen that are difficult, that are upsetting. The key then is how we respond then to the circumstances and how we can draw out something positive and perhaps even learn from negative events. Researchers have actually found that resilient people use positive emotions to rebound from and find positivity in stressful encounters. And that's because they work on drawing from a broader range of emotions to cultivate a spirit of optimism. So we might ask, how can I use the energy created by the stress and anxiety that I've encountered to help me better cope with the challenges that I'm facing? Or what can I learn from this stress, and how does it help me change or grow and find new solutions? So if we're experiencing pain or negative emotions, then that's okay, in the sense that we have to understand that they're signals. They're giving us information about something, maybe something that's wrong in our lives, or it's something that's problematic. I mean, we're all going to face troubles. And if we pay attention, then we hopefully can learn from the messages, from the signals that we're receiving. And in the more, in a broader sense, hopefully we can learn then about ourselves and about the world around us, and ideally get to the root of whatever that problem might be. So again, it's sort of like you have to embrace the pain and suffering to some extent to try to understand what's the source. And if you can do that, then more quickly you can overcome the pain and the suffering and identify again a pathway forward. But that leads to commandment number 9. You have to play the long game. What do I mean by that? Stay true to your values. Embrace what you do, because you know that there's going to be some kind of a payoff along the way or in the end. You may not always see it. You may not know exactly what that's going to be, but you know at least that you're on the right path if you believe in what you're doing and you stay true to yourself. And that, by the way, is often reward enough. Sure, it's great if somebody gives you a compliment or you reap little daily rewards along the way. And it's also great, by the way, if you're the one paying compliments and encouraging others. But regardless, to be an optimist means sharing the best and trusting that that's good enough, whatever it is that you're doing, okay? And that things will work out accordingly. And I say whatever it is that you're doing, meaning if you're staying true to yourself and true to your values and so forth. And then just focus on one step at a time, as they say. And eventually, those steps add up to kilometers or miles, and you'll see just how far you've been able to travel. And finally, number 10, constantly seek and remind yourself of the inherent beauty of everyday life, the poetry that can be found in every experience, and take joy in knowing that every day you're alive is another beautiful day above the ground. I love what Omar Itari has written about this, which I'll quote at some length. So Itari writes the following: if you choose to believe that your aspirations are possible, then you'll see the beauty in your imagination. If you choose to do the daily work that will lead you there, you'll see the beauty in your efforts and progress. If you choose to only focus on what you can control yourself, you'll see the beauty that can be only found inside of yourselves. And if you choose to love deeply and fully, you will see the beauty of becoming fearless. And if you choose to be solution-focused, you will see the beauty and the joy in solving your problems. And if you choose to be grateful and accepting, you'll always see the beauty of life's many blessings and the meaning behind your struggles. End quote. So thank you, Itari. In summation, obviously, we are all part of life. We're part of the grand experiment of being alive on this earth. We are imperfect and impermanent, and therein lies our inherent beauty. Never give up that childlike wonder. Or if you have, remember what it's like once again to believe in all that's possible, all that's out there, perhaps unseen, and believe in all that's beautiful. And when necessary, remember too that you have the option to create beauty out of that which has been a source of struggle and pain. Indeed, even in our harshest, almost soul-crushing experiences, if you will, these can contribute to the beauty that we experience in life. And if we accept what we cannot change and embrace instead what we can focus on, what we can change, we can embrace resilience. We can stand up and start walking forward again in a direction that, highlights the purpose and the meaning of our lives. Take a rest occasionally if needed. We all need them, but don't quit. You still have a chance. You still have energy. You are still here. You still have your very being. If you weren't, you wouldn't be watching this vlog. And that's what matters if you're an optimist. Okay? So until next time, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And focus on the glass being half full. But pay attention to what's in the glass too. That might matter. Just be careful. But allow your imagination to be as wild as you like, and just go for it. All right, we'll see you next time.